Welcome to List Up, the channel where we dive headfirst into history's most fascinating, bewildering, and sometimes utterly facepalm-worthy moments. Today, we're tackling a topic that proves the butterfly effect isn't just real, it's often delivered by a single, stubbornly disastrous individual. Get ready for the list of times one person ruined everything for everyone, from global pandemics to world wars, from economic collapses to environmental catastrophes. Prepare yourselves for a parade of historical figures who, shall we say, significantly lowered the global mood. Our first entry comes to us from the early 20th century. A woman whose name became synonymous with the invisible killer she unwittingly carried. Meet Typhoid Mary, born Mary Mallon. A seemingly ordinary Irish immigrant cook in New York, Mary was asymptomatic, meaning she carried the deadly typhoid bacteria without ever falling ill herself. The problem, every meal she cooked, every family she served, became a potential outbreak. When health officials finally traced multiple typhoid cases across various households back to her, Mary refused to believe it. She was healthy. How could she be spreading disease? This stubborn denial, coupled with her repeated evasion of capture and refusal to stop cooking, led to at least 3 deaths and 51 infections, though the true number is likely far higher. She was, quite literally, a walking, talking, utterly stubborn biohazard, eventually confined for decades to a tiny cottage. All because one person simply refused to accept the science of germ theory. From a microscopic thread, we leap to a macroscopic spark that ignited World War I. Our culprit, Gavrilo Princip, on June 28, 1914, this 19-year-old Serbian nationalist stood on a street corner in Sarajevo. His target, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. Princip had already failed one assassination attempt earlier that day, but fate, or perhaps cosmic bad luck, intervened. The Archduke's driver took a wrong turn, putting the royal motorcade directly in front of a still-lingering, still-armed Gavrilo Princip. With 2 shots, Princip killed the Archduke and his wife Sophie. What followed was a complex, interlocking series of alliances and ultimatums that plunged Europe, and subsequently the world, into 4 devastating years of war. Millions died, empires crumbled, and the geopolitical landscape was irrevocably scarred. One bullet, one teenager, and the world changed forever. Now, for a truly mind-bending entry on our list, because this person ruined everything. By not ruining everything, in fact, he pretty much saved it. We're talking about Stanislav Petrov. In the early hours of September 26, 1983, during the chilling height of the Cold War, Lieutenant Colonel Petrov was on duty at a Soviet bunker outside Moscow. Suddenly, computer screens flared with a terrifying message. The United States had launched 5 intercontinental ballistic missiles, headed straight for Russia. Nuclear war was imminent. Petrov's orders were clear: report the launch to his superiors, initiating a retaliatory strike. But something felt wrong. The system had never reported so few missiles. The attack seemed too small for a first strike. Against all protocol, against the very system designed to prevent annihilation, Petrov made a gut call. He declared it a false alarm. He disobeyed. His choice avoided a catastrophic nuclear war based on a glitching satellite system mistaking sunlight on clouds for missile launches. So yes, Stanislav Petrov is on this list, not for ruining everything, but for saving everything from being ruined by a system designed to ruin everything. A true contrarian hero who ruined the possibility of total global ruin. Next up, a man who, quite frankly, was a scientific genius with an uncanny knack for inventing things that would later become planetary disasters. Meet Thomas Midgley Jr. If there was a villain's league of chemistry, he'd be the undisputed MVP. Midgley is responsible for 2 inventions that caused widespread long-lasting damage. First, in the 1920s, he developed tetrathyl lead, or TEL, as an additive for gasoline, preventing engine knocking. Leaded petrol became ubiquitous, pumping poison into every city street and ultimately causing untold cases of lead poisoning, developmental issues, and environmental contamination. Then, just a few years later, he developed chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs, hailed as miracle refrigerants and propellants. CFCs were non-toxic, non-flammable, and incredibly stable. Too stable, as it turned out. Released into the atmosphere, they drifted to the stratosphere, where they systematically devoured the Earth's ozone layer, our atmospheric sunscreen, creating the infamous ozone hole. One man, 2 chemical innovations, 2 global environmental catastrophes. He really was a one-man wrecking crew for the planet's health. From planetary destruction to personal financial ruin, let's talk about Charles Ponzi. He didn't invent the concept of taking money from new investors to pay off earlier ones. That's a con as old as time itself, but he certainly perfected it and put his name to it. In the early 1920s, Ponzi promised investors incredible returns, up to 50% in 45 days, by speculating on international postal coupons. It worked for a while, just like all good pyramid schemes do, because early investors were paid, creating a massive buzz and attracting more and more money. His scheme attracted tens of millions of dollars worth billions today, but it was an unsustainable house of cards. When the inevitable collapse came, it wiped out the life savings of thousands of families and banks, causing widespread financial devastation and ruin for countless people. His name now, a verb, a cautionary tale whispered to anyone eyeing a too-good-to-be-true investment. Moving from financial fraud to the tragic fragility of peace, we look at the ripple effects of Anwar Sadat's assassination. Sadat, then president of Egypt, was a pivotal figure in Middle Eastern peacemaking. In 1978, he signed the Camp David Accords with Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin, a historic peace treaty that earned them both the Nobel Peace Prize. It was a beacon of hope in a region scarred by conflict. But on October 6, 1981, during an annual victory parade, Sadat was assassinated by fundamentalist army officers who opposed his peace efforts with Israel. This single, violent act didn't just end a life, it extinguished a powerful voice for peace and derailed the fragile process of reconciliation in the Middle East. It emboldened extremist factions, set back diplomatic efforts for decades, and contributed to prolonged instability, proving how one person's violent decision can halt progress and plunge a region back into darkness. Cast your mind back to ancient Rome, to an emperor whose name is synonymous with mismanagement and excess, Nero. Ruling from 54 to 68 AD, Nero's reign was marked by paranoia, lavish spending, and a growing disconnect from the realities of governance. While the infamous tale of him fiddling while Rome burned is likely apocryphal, he was reportedly out of the city. It perfectly captures the perception of his utter ineptitude. His policies alienated the Senate, his extravagant projects depleted the treasury, and his persecution of Christians sowed deep resentment. When a massive fire ravaged Rome in 64 AD, Nero's subsequent rebuilding efforts and accusations against Christians only fueled public discontent. His ultimate downfall led to a civil war and plunged the empire into chaos, demonstrating that even the most powerful person can, through sheer narcissism and bad decisions, bring a mighty civilization to its knees. Proof that even emperors can't escape the consequences of a bad temperament and even worse urban planning. From petty Roman mismanagement to outright genocidal greed, our next entry is King Leopold II of Belgium. This is a particularly dark chapter in human history. Leopold, not content with his constitutional monarchy, established the Congo Free State as his personal colony in Central Africa in the late 19th century. He spun a tale of humanitarianism and ending slavery, but his true motive was ruthless exploitation of the region's vast natural resources, primarily rubber and ivory. Under his direct, brutal rule, the Congolese population was subjected to unimaginable atrocities, forced labor, mutilation, widespread murder, and systematic starvation to meet production quotas. The exact death toll is debated, but estimates range from 10 to 15 million people. This wasn't a war or a famine. It was a deliberate, industrial-scale genocide engineered by one man's unimaginable cruelty and insatiable greed. Leopold II stands as a chilling testament to how one person, wielding absolute power, can inflict unspeakable suffering on millions. And then, there's Alexander Selkirk. Did he cause widespread death and destruction? No. Financial ruin? Hardly global conflict? Absolutely not. But he did single-handedly ruin the idea that being stranded on a desert island would be an entirely unique experience for anyone else, and profoundly altered our romantic notions of solitude. A Scottish sailor, Selkirk, after a quarrel with his captain in 1704, was voluntarily marooned on a deserted island in the South Pacific. He survived alone for over 4 years, developing incredible skills and resilience. His dramatic rescue and subsequent tales of survival captured the public imagination. Most famously, his story became a primary inspiration for Daniel Defoe's iconic novel, Robinson Crusoe. So, while Selkirk didn't precisely ruin everything for everyone in the catastrophic sense, he did irrevocably shape and perhaps spoil the narrative of the solitary castaway. He romanticized hardship, turning a terrifying ordeal into an adventurous myth, potentially setting unrealistic expectations for anyone who ever dreamt of ditching civilization. He ruined the concept of original isolation, and probably made island survival sound way too poetic for the poor souls who actually tried it unprepared. From the microscopic spread of disease to the macroscopic shift of continents and wars, from the almost cataclysmic to the quietly influential, these stories remind us that history isn't just made by grand movements but by the pivotal, sometimes catastrophic choices of individuals. Whether through stubbornness, ideology, greed, or even sheer happenstance. One person's actions can, indeed, ruin everything for everyone. If you found this list both horrifying and oddly fascinating, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe to list of 4 more deep dives into the weird, wild, and sometimes wonderfully disastrous annals of history. And tell us in the comments below, who do you think deserves a spot on a list of people who absolutely, unequivocally ruined everything? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next list of